there, it's Sandee Sgarlata. Get ready to dive deep into incredible stories of people who've taken life's challenges and turned them into a roadmap to happiness. On this show, we're not just talking about overcoming obstacles. We're uncovering the real, gritty secrets to living a life filled with peace, joy, and genuine happiness. This is Happiness Solved. So let's get started, because happiness is a choice, and the choice is yours. Jim Keys, such a pleasure to be having you on my show today. How's everything going?
Absolutely terrific.
Fantastic. All right. So Jim called me out beforehand. I am using a teleprompter for the first time today to read his bio. So folks, let's see how this goes. All right. Here we go. Jim Keys is known internationally as a business and social change agent. Okay, you know what? I am going to mess it up because it goes too fast. So we're just going to say, forget this teleprompter stuff. But anyway, you are, yeah.
You don't need a bio.
I don't need a bio, but just so
Jim Keys, overall nice guy. How's that?
Overall nice guy. But the cool thing about you is that you were the CEO of two of my childhood places that I would always visit very frequently, 7-Eleven and Blockbuster, right? Fortunately, 7-Elevens are around. Sadly, Blockbuster didn't make it. But what I really want to talk to you today...
It wasn't my fault. I didn't do it.
Well, I mean, come on. Like, we don't even know what AI is going to do for everybody today, right? So
no, true.
It was just the evolution of the changing of technology and all that. But what we're going to really dive into today is your best-selling book, Education is Freedom. And it's featured by YouTube personality Mr. Beast and Beast Philanthropy as part of a global campaign to provide $10,000 scholarships to students worldwide. That is incredible.
That's really been incredible. Very fortunate. I think the universe conspired to bring a lot of people to me. I have Snoop Dogg reading my book. I've got Mr. Beast promoting it and doing a scholarship. I've got astronauts. Charlie Duke from Apollo 16 did a zero gravity mission with me and invited me up, and we exchanged the book in zero gravity. And I mean, all this stuff is just a small miracle that, like I said, one of my favorite books is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And one of my favorite lines in it is, if you want something badly enough, the universe will conspire to make it happen. And
that's right.
I wanted people to read this book. I really wanted to get this message out very badly. And the universe has conspired to make it happen. So far, so good. And you're helping more. See?
That's right. That's right. Yes,
the universe brought you to me.
Well, literally, because we don't need to go into the backstory here.
We don't tell them.
We don't have to do any of that.
The randomness, yeah.
Right. But I love in here, on the homepage of your website, jameswkeys.com, you say there, you can take away your money, your material things, your job, but they cannot take away what you know. And that's so true. I mean, knowledge is power, right? Is the old, but I love your adage on it, which education is freedom.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I grew up with parents who never went to college and didn't use an education, but my dad was the one that came up with that somewhat fatalistic, like, oh, they can take your money, kid. They can take your house. They can take your car. They actually did take our house. Our house was condemned when I was a little kid growing up.
Oh, wow.
And but he said they can't take what you know. And I had no idea the power of that and the importance of that statement until later in life. I realized, everything that I have been able to accomplish is geared to or from my ability to learn. And then the more important learning was, we all think it's about money. I was guilty, in school. It's about getting a job. It's about making money, right? Yeah. And then you wake up one day and you go, wait a minute, it really isn't about money. It's about freedom. And money is an enabler of certain kinds of freedom. But you don't need money to be free. You do need knowledge
That's
to
right.
truly be free. And it's freeing yourself of your own insecurities, your own mental block, and freeing yourself for the ability to interact with people unlike you from all over the world. And I have that
Mm,
freedom today, so I'm trying to share it with others.
I love it. I love it. You know, that's great that your father instilled that in you because it's so true. And I have to laugh. My father, bless his heart, rest in peace, all that. I came to him in high school and said, you know, I was starting high school and I was like, I don't know what courses to take. Well, my mom and dad were both high school dropouts. They did eventually get their GEDs pretty quickly, I think, you know, when they were young. He says, take all the secretarial classes.
Oh,
I was like, okay.
hey, that's what they knew, right?
And it served me,
Oh yeah. Hey,
you know.
I literally talk about coming from that same mindset. I would not take typing in school because it was for girls, right? That's where there were no guys in typing class. It was everybody
They
going
weren't.
into that administrative secretarial. And so my mom literally, because I wanted to learn how to type, but I was too proud to go to typing class. So my mom at one point took a night school class in typing, and she would come home and teach me. And then one of the advantages I had in high school is I knew how to type. None of the other guys did. And I was like, man, I was flying through papers, and in college, it was a great asset. But then dial forward, it was time to go to school and graduate school, and I had a professor saying you ought to go to business school, and I was like, no, man, I'm not going to go to business. That's like typing and stenography. In my head, that's what
Right.
business was. It was typing class and steno and stuff like that. I had no frame of reference about, oh, I could be a CEO. I didn't know how to spell CEO. Literally.
Yeah. And now you have, I remember my ex husband when we got our first computer in the early 90s, and I bought him the typing thing. And he was a very successful lawyer. And I go, you need to learn how to type. That's what my secretary does. And I'm like, I'm telling
Mm,
you, this whole
yeah,
computer thing is not
yeah,
going away.
yeah. It's true.
And, you know, and then my current husband, I always hate to go there, my second husband, um, he's a computer programmer and he does this. And I was like floored. I was like, you don't know how to type? You're a computer programmer. He does this, but you
Yeah,
know, whatever
yeah.
works for you. So did you end up getting a business degree, or what ended up happening? Because you
I
obviously were hugely successful in
I
business.
did. I did. Well, growing up like that, you really don't have a frame of reference for what career opportunities are, whatever.
Right.
And my career has ended up being very opportunistic. I didn't set out to be, in corporate America or run a Fortune 500 company or anything like that. So I was literally going to be a lawyer because that was kind of the best thing I thought I could see on the horizon. It wore suits to work and carried briefcases and made money. I thought that
Right.
sounds good. But I had a professor intervene. It was truly an intervention. He caught me after class one day and said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I've been accepted to 2 law schools and blah, blah, blah." And he said, "Keys, you're going to make a terrible lawyer, I can assure you. Promise me you'll get an MBA." And I literally had never heard of the concept of masters in business administration, and literally I was guilty of thinking, why would I want to do that? And he was right. He talked me in. Columbia had a joint degree, 4-year JD MBA, and he talked me into at least applying for that, which got me to Columbia University, and I ended up getting the MBA. Never did get the JD. I didn't need it, and never looked back. I found that business can actually be quite exciting, and
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
it was very very fortunate that again the universe probably intervened on my behalf to protect me from myself because I would have been a terrible lawyer.
I just had this conversation a couple of years ago with my son because his dad's a lawyer and he was a political science major. And the whole time I was like, I really don't think law school's for you. because I met my ex-husband and we started dating when he was a first year, 1 year out of law school.
Hmm.
So I saw, and I worked for lawyers. I was a legal secretary, so I knew. And thankfully, he decided, yeah, you're right, Mom. But he struggled through getting the political science degree because that's so much harder than a business degree. And I said, just get a business degree. Anyway, so what was why did you want to write this book? Like, what was it that you felt? Because writing a book is a big deal,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
It's a big project.
the inspiration really started before the book. It started when I was at 7-Eleven, and we had 400,000 employees, and we were trying to hire. The turnover was huge, and I realized that there's a supply problem when it comes to educated workers. And we had, if you think about 7-Eleven, there's a lot of first generation Americans. And I'm going, wait a minute, now we've got all these people from India, Pakistan, from Bangladesh, from all these places coming to the United States with no money, and they're carving out a career and they're getting an education. Why aren't our own kids in inner city Detroit or Dallas or whatever? Why aren't they seeing this opportunity? And I came to realize that they're in the same trap I was. They just don't know any better. They don't know what's
Right.
even an option because their parents didn't go to school, or they don't have the frame of reference around them. And I created a foundation 20 years ago by the name Education is Freedom. We put it in public schools, and it was just to uh, basically intervene on the behalf of these kids to say, hey, you really can. Here's how you do it. Here's the roadmap. Something no one was
Right.
telling them. And later on, the foundation has done exceptionally well. We've had hundreds of thousands of young people whose lives have been changed. But I have a lot of people. My foreword was written by a dear friend called Stedman Graham, and he was one of my
Oh
early
yeah.
board members. Yeah, and Stedman and others that he knows quite well have been encouraging me for many years just to write the book, get it out. This is a worldwide message, not just a U.S. message. It's global, and it needs to be. It's a message that needs to be shared. And Jim, you have a gift that needs to be shared. And get out there and tell your story, and tell the story of this gift, what it is that it takes to be able to be successful, and to control your own destiny. So that was the motivation. And finally, during the pandemic, Stedman was on me like every day. You're going to write the book. You're going to write the book. Started yet? And he helped me down that path basically. So again, I'm just very fortunate to have had good mentors, good friends who have given me the advice. And now my mission is to help get this word out as much as I can, because there's so many people that are trapped in their own reality, and it's a self-imposed trap in so many cases.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I also want to add to that is that you don't have to do it right out of high school, right? Like sometimes it's, you can take time.
Yeah.
For example, because I was told to um, go to, take the secretarial classes, and I was a competitive figure skater, all I ever wanted to do was be in the ice capades. Well, 2 weeks after I graduated from high school in 1983, I get the letter in the mail and they're like, congratulations, you're on a waiting list. And I was like, oh, maybe I should go to college, right? And I did attend a semester, didn't work out because it was just, I was looking through a fashion magazine and I picked a fashion institute. I'm like, oh, let me do this. And they actually sent a 17-year-old to Fort Lauderdale to attend college. What do you think ended up happening? I was on the beach every day drinking
Oh yeah.
beer, and that lasted about a semester. But the secretarial classes really served me, and I became. They're not called secretaries today. I believe they're called assistants, legal assistant or whatnot. But it served me very, very well, and it set the trajectory for me. Well, then when I became a single mother, I realized very quickly and went back to corporate America. And I was like, I got a great job in management, but I realized very quickly that if I wanted to climb that corporate ladder, that I was going to have a degree. And so I went back to college. I graduated with a business degree in business management with a certificate in human resources management in 2019, 35 years after graduating from high school.
Yeah. Yeah. But you
And I
did. But
wanted
you
to,
did.
and I did it, and I wanted to finish because my son was graduating high school that year. And I was like, I need to finish this degree before my son graduates high school. And I
That's
did it,
awesome.
right? And I really, Jim, it was such a great experience. And even though I left corporate America a year ago, what I found is that it cemented even further what knowledge is for you.
Yeah.
And I
Exactly.
learned so much that I wish I had, because I've always been an entrepreneur, and I started an IT recruiting company, and we were doing it was hugely successful until March of 2001. If you remember the whole
Oh, yeah.
.com bubble burst,
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do. I wasn't equipped. I
Well,
was not equipped.
that's
Yeah.
such an important point because today there's a narrative, and the narrative is very dangerous. And it's ironically, it's coming from some of my most conservative friends who are going, education's not, it's not important. You can go make $100,000 a year as a plumber. It's like, yeah, but you'll be making $100,000 a year for the rest of your life. And $100,000 in 40 years isn't going to be worth as much as it is today. And by the way, someone may have the capability to do so much more, and they may be incredibly frustrated with that career choice. Don't limit them. Give them. So my response has been to all of these people that are saying, just go get a trade. My and they're what they're saying is college isn't for everyone. And my
Right.
response to that is college isn't for everyone, but opportunity is.
That's right.
And college is kind of a key to opening up that opportunity, to unlocking that opportunity. So, and it doesn't matter if you do college now, like in your case, it doesn't matter when.
That's right.
It just matters that you do take advantage of that learning that unlocks opportunity. It doesn't even have to be college, but the ability to recognize that lifelong learning is the key to happiness ultimately, because even if you're retired, what are you going to do? Sit around and look at TV? Learn a
Yeah.
language, learn a foreign language, learn a skill, learn a new creative art, and your life is going to be so much richer just from
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah, for sure. All right. I want to switch to mindset, because being a successful CEO of two huge, huge companies comes with a cost. How were you able to keep yourself grounded, to keep going every day? Because that's a big deal. You know, Fortune 500 companies are a big deal.
Yeah.
And you have to have that mindset. What
Mm-hmm.
did you do to keep yourself maybe from not totally burning out, keeping everybody else motivated and yourself as well?
I have a secret weapon.
Yes. Love those.
No, I truly do. I call it a gift, but it's a gift that I can share with others, and that's what I tried to do in the book. In the book, Education is Freedom. It's a bit of a misnomer because it isn't really just about education. I share this gift with others, and I've found that, and I didn't know this at the time, but I grew up, as I mentioned, in rather adverse situation between poverty and disruption, family disruption, my mom leaving at an early age, blah blah blah, condemnation of the house, all this junk, right? But
Right.
what that gave me was a level of resilience and an awareness that there's two ways I can deal with this crisis. I can either deal with it in a positive fashion and say, I don't know why I'm having to go through this, but I'm not going to be a victim. In this crisis is an opportunity, and I'm going to find it. Damn it! And I did, and I compare that to others who go through crisis and become the victim, and they start blaming everybody else, or blaming themselves, and woe is me, and blah blah blah. So what I discovered is that change equals opportunity. I've even named the acronym CEO change equals opportunity. And if you look at life that way, not just a corporation, but if you look at life that way, and you look around at the way people respond to change, most of us, I'd say the vast majority of us, respond negatively to change. We just don't like it, particularly if it's hard change. But those who respond positively, those who keep their head up, those who find the opportunity in that change are not only happier individuals, but they're also more successful because they recognize it's not the change that matters. It's my response to it that separates winners from losers. And if everybody else is responding negatively, and I respond positively, I'm probably going to have an advantage. So
1,000%.
it's a secret weapon, recognizing that change equals opportunity.
I love it. And I think the real part of the problem is that change requires and growth requires that you be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
And
Yes.
people don't want to be uncomfortable.
Exactly. Well, that leads
Yeah.
to the second. I've got basically three elements that I would characterize as this gift that I have that I'm perfectly happy to share with others if they're willing to listen or read my book. So the first is dealing with change and recognizing is nothing you can do about it. The macro environment, you join Blockbuster and think you're going to be on top of the world and you're going to take it from DVDs to streaming video and you're going to be a tech genius. And then all of a sudden the financial markets collapse and you've got $1 billion of debt and you go from wanting to transform a company that you also just invested in heavily because you had confidence in yourself to all of a sudden now you're in defense. You went from offense to defense and you've got to try to save this company and get that balance sheet refinanced. That's the reality of change. It's a macro environment and sometimes there's nothing you can do about it, but your response to it is critically important. So change is the first, but the second is confidence because this is where we fall short. Okay, I got it. I'll respond to change, but I don't know if I can, that little insecurity thing, that imposter syndrome, it goes off and you start having self-doubts and people all around you have doubts. And then no one is confident. You're not confident. Your suppliers aren't confident. Your employees aren't confident. Your board isn't. And then what happens? Right? So confidence is the only way you can positively deal with change. If you don't have that confidence, you'll fail. And so, how do you have confidence? Well, knowledge is kind of the key because if you prepare, you can accomplish anything. Why does Tom Brady feel so confident when he walks on the field? Not because he sat around eating bonbons the week before, he was studying game tapes. And his confidence came from preparation. You can prepare for anything, you can learn anything. So confidence comes from knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And then the third is clarity because you can accept change, you can have all the confidence in the world, but if you don't have clarity, simplicity, the ability to take complex issues and break them down into simple components, if you don't have the ability to listen to those around you, your customers, your employees, etc., then you won't be able to then communicate back out the plan to get you out of this crisis, right?
Right.
So that clarity of communications, both inbound listening and outbound speaking, is essential to your success. So it's those three things: ability to deal with change, having the confidence to do something about it, and then the clarity to both understand how to fix the problem and the ability to communicate the solution. The best plan in the world will fail if people can't understand it and be able to follow it.
Mm. I was just like, I just had a conversation. I think every single podcast I have, we talk about confidence.
Yeah,
It's the number one thing in the athletes and the executives that I work with. Confidence is the number one challenge that they all have.
it's and
Yeah.
let me take you one step further. why is confidence such a challenge?
Well, because it's what's happening up here in our minds, really.
Well,
Yeah.
it's fear. It's fear.
Right. The fear. Yeah. Fear
And
for sure.
I had to understand this. I had to sort of study this when I was preparing the book because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have a chapter on confidence. We all talk about so important confidence, right? Nobody ever steps back and says, well, why is this so hard? Right. So I started looking at the human brain and I realized, well, we still are creatures of our own history. And as mammals, we had natural predators, and there's a portion of our brain that protected us from being eaten um, or trampled, and it caused that reaction, a fight or flight reaction. That shows up in the boardroom today. We don't have a natural predator. We're not going to get
No.
trampled by a herd of
Yeah.
elephants unless you're out in in the field somewhere. But but we still react that way, and that
Yeah.
fear mechanism isn't. It's perfectly natural. We shouldn't be horrified by it or shocked by it. It's natural. We're humans, but we can overcome fear with knowledge. It is literally when you're a kid and you turn on the light in the dark. That is the equivalent of knowledge. You're now looking around. You have knowledge that there's no monster in the room.
Right.
And if we can just channel that ability to recognize that knowledge is the antidote to fear, and that the more we understand a problem and break it into simple terms, the easier it is to solve it, and there's really nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah. I know. Fear's it's a real thing. I mean, it's a really
Oh
real
yeah.
thing. And like for me, when it shows up, I actually have a name for my fear because I know that in my case, and I think this is probably true for most people, fear comes up because it's our inner child.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like our inner child. We're afraid,
Yeah.
and so I think when I feel fearful, I picture myself as a little girl. I call her by her nickname and I tell her to get in the back seat because I'm driving
Yeah. Yeah.
and she's going to keep her mouth shut
Yeah.
because you know, I'm the driver, not you. You're not going to the fear. I'm not going to let the fear drive me. So,
So I'll
yeah.
give you another one that's a good example. I don't know if I have a handy. I think I may right here. Okay. There we go. So you can probably see from my backdrop that I'm an aviation geek. And
I see. Yes.
so think about the last person in the world you want to be afraid when you're in their hands, right? A pilot.
Yes.
If a pilot gets into a crisis, you don't want that pilot to revert to that 3-year-old reaction, the fight or flight syndrome, because if they fight the airplane, they're going to over control it and rip a wing off. If they flight, if they go, I don't know what to do, I'm scared, and they get their hands off, the airplane's going to spin out of control. And in both cases, it's bad. So pilots have to be able to suppress that fear when a crisis happens. And crises happen in an aircraft. I train once a year in a simulator to have the privilege of flying jets. I can fly. I can fly at 45,000 feet. But the first thing they do when they put me in the simulator is test me, and they test me by giving me a problem. Emergency depressurization of the aircraft. It is all of a sudden I have to get this airplane down to 12,000 feet immediately. First thing I have to do is get my mask on. There's a whole series of things that I have to do. Well, some of them are memory items, but this is an emergency checklist.
Mm-hmm.
And what it represents, and one of these exists in virtually every aircraft, all corporate aircraft, and it sits about right here in my aircraft. So it's the first thing I do. Crisis, I've got an alert. I either respond to the memory items, put my mask on, then I immediately grab my emergency checklist. I turn to the exact page of the crisis and I read step 1, step 2, step 3. What this book represents is knowledge, and that knowledge eliminates the fear. I don't have time to be afraid in a crisis as a pilot. I have time to react in a positive way by reaching for knowledge, information. And that takes away my fear. That's how I can solve the problem and not crash the airplane.
Oh, I love that. And as a passenger and never a pilot, because it's just not something that I have a desire to do.
Like most people.
Right. If you are in a crisis, what I want to know, is it protocol for the pilot to grab the book and actually read the instructions and follow it, or are they doing it by memory? Or is that book there to ensure that they don't miss a step? Please tell me that's the case.
Yes. The book is there to ensure they don't miss steps. Yeah.
Okay.
There are a very small number of memory items. And the
Okay.
memory items, a good example is if you did have some catastrophic depressurization of the aircraft at 40,000 feet, you have about 10 seconds before you
Right.
pass
You
out.
don't have time to grab the manual and yeah.
Right. So the very
Right.
first thing you do in that crisis is put your mask on. Now you've stabilized the situation and you have time to grab the mask. I mean, to
Okay,
grab the
good.
book, right?
Okay. We just want to clarify that for,
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah,
everybody out there.
yeah, yeah. You don't have to worry about your pilot's memory.
Okay, good.
And that's what and literally that's what the checklist's for. Because if you
Right.
had to rely on everybody's memory, and now all of a sudden I'm going to get scared. Oh, will I remember? That
Right.
insecurity creeps in. I don't have to be afraid. It's all right here. There's nothing that could happen on that aircraft that isn't captured in that step 1 through 10 process.
And there are techniques to help you quickly shift, like what I teach, which is very, very simple. And this is not my method, but who knows, because there's so many versions of it out there. You're triggered, you pause, you notice, and then you choose.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's just follow those little steps. And
Yep.
then hopefully you'll make the right decision. And, for me, like Jim, I just try to look at everything. Every time I'm triggered, I try to look at it with neutrality and not attach an emotion to it, right?
Yeah. You want
It's
another
it's easier
example?
said than done.
No, but it's true, and it's another thing I tried to communicate in the book. I on purpose put this image on the cover.
Yeah.
You know what that represents? This is going to be way too subtle for virtually anybody that reads the book because I didn't talk about it specifically in the book.
What does it represent?
It represents something that I learned from friends who are astronauts. I've got the privilege of being an aviator. I kind of got to know a lot of guys and dear friends with some of the Apollo astronauts, et cetera. There's one consistent theme that all astronauts have. It's something called the overview effect. They see the world from a different perspective. Remember that
Yeah,
word,
that's right.
perspective,
That's right.
because they're outside of the orbit of the Earth's outside of the Earth's atmosphere, and they're looking back at this beautiful planet, and they're not seeing borders, they're not seeing races, they're not seeing religions, they're seeing one humanity all together on this beautiful planet called Earth, right? And that sounds all very fine and everything. But that is perspective, to be able to look at the Earth from a different perspective. Now compare that to perception. Perception is what we have when we're down here on Earth
That's right.
and we open the internet up and we get on social media and we see a meme and we go, and we get mad. That's perception. We have the perception that was planted by that meme with that true or false statement that made us react, given our perception, right? So the comparison that I've been trying to make in the book is don't be fooled by your perception. Step back, be an astronaut. Look at every issue from a more global perspective. And that use of perspective will trigger your curiosity, your critical thinking, all of the things that come into play so you're not reacting based on one little piece of information.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. This has been such an amazing conversation, Jim, and I wish we had more time. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience that you haven't talked about?
Read the book. There's more in
Read the
here.
book. Read the
No,
book.
it really is my request for all of your audience, for all of your viewers, is that I do hope they enjoyed some of these messages that we talked about. There's a lot more in the book, but my objective with the book is not to have it be buy it, put it on the shelf, read it once, and then let it sit there. Please, this needs to be shared with others. There's so many of us who are mired in our own insecurities and stuck. And this book is about getting people unstuck and letting them know, um, that expression, think outside of the box. Well, what, there's no box. It's your own box. You're putting yourself in
That's
it.
right.
So that's that's the target of the book for anybody who's wants to get out of their own box.
Awesome. I love it. All right, folks, go to Jim's website, jameswkeys.com. It will be in the show notes as well. And I'm sure you can get your book anywhere. Education is freedom. The future is in your hands. I love that. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And take care, everyone. And I hope you and your family are healthy and happy.